my channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm Messy Jessie and you're watching. I am here with another Books That BookTube is Sleeping On video. This is a series I created on my channel last year in 2020, and it serves the purposes of highlighting the under-celebrated books on BookTube. Books that BookTube isn't reading, but man, y'all really should be, because you're just missing out on absolute joy. Wonderful, fantastic literature. The book that I'm going to be spilling hot, scalding positivity all over is none other than The Marvelous Mirza Girls by Sheba Karim. I mean, this cover alone, it's just everything, every single thing. And before I even get into the review, I just have to talk about the fact that I think this is the first book cover I've ever seen where a girl is shown with visible imperfections. This eye is not symmetrical with this one, and then she has, it looks like just life scars and marks on her face. When do we ever get to see an actual book cover with girls that have very natural flaws? Do you know what I'm saying? I love that. Like, the most that I'll usually see on a book cover is maybe some freckles, maybe some glasses, you know, but like you rarely get to see girls with acne on book covers. I've never seen a girl with facial scars on a book cover unless the book cover was a fantasy novel. You know what I'm saying? I just absolutely love this cover. And it honestly is very indicative of the entire novel, because those kinds of themes continue throughout the book. Like it just defies expectations. It defies the idea of what YA can be, what a good contemporary story can be. Okay, let me stop. You're doing great, Jessie. It's fine. All right, let me slow my roll, pump the brakes, and actually give a synopsis for The Marvelous Mirza Girls. This book is frequently described as South Asian Gilmore Girls. Kendar Blake referred to it as part self-discovery, part travelogue, and all charming. A description that could not be more apt. In this book, we are following a young woman named Noreen who is absolutely devastated after her Aunt Sonia dies. She is so distraught that she stops writing her scripts and is entirely unable to conjure any excitement about her future or college. Her mother, Ruby, is offered a work opportunity in New Delhi. Noreen decides to travel along, and this book follows the aftermath. You get to follow the romantic excursions that both Noreen and her mother delve into, as well as the politics of New Delhi and of being first-generation American who looks Indian, but moving to India, instantly being recognized as not having been born in the land. With some help from Bollywood celebrities, 14th century ruins, karaoke party conversations, and Sufi saints, Noreen learns that no matter where you are, your path is lit by the lamp of your own heart. Honestly, if that doesn't convince you to read this book, I don't know what else I can tell you. But let's talk about the themes, some quotes that I loved, my thoughts on these characters, why you really, really need to read this book. Okay, this is one of the most sex-forward YA books I have ever read in my entire life, if not the most. Noreen is allowed to talk about her sexuality. There is big discussion about female pleasure. I was reading a paragraph where she was like, yep, so I woke up and masturbated, and I was like, wait a second, slow your roll, wait, I wasn't prepared. Because I simply am so accustomed to the idea of female pleasure just being cut out of YA books. I think that that is such a taboo topic in YA literature. We can talk about male pleasure, but like not the politics of female pleasure, right? And definitely never like queer and trans pleasure, but that's its own thing. I just thought it was really great to have such a sex-forward YA novel. Noreen is 18 years old, so still a teenager, but not like the younger end of YA, but it was still incredibly refreshing to see her own her body and not be ashamed of it, and to have representation for a mom who raised her to be that way. I love her mother, Ruby. Ruby is the baddest bee who has ever lived. She She swears, she smokes weed. There are several weed smoking scenes in the book, and it's very casual. It's definitely not done for shock value, but it's just a part of these women's lives and their cultures. And I absolutely loved that. I loved that this was casually combating the stigmatization of weed. Also, if you are like me and used to and continue to struggle with the fact that so many YA parents are deeply conventional and traditional, this book is definitely for you, because many times I would read YA books as a kid, right, and feel almost dirty reading these books because these parents were not like my parents. The parents in YA books never swore. They never used drugs. They never raised their voices. They had stable 9-to-5 jobs. They were just very traditional and conventional, right? And it made me feel like there was something wrong with my home life. Like there was something wrong with the way that I was raised. That these books were subtly projecting an idea of what good parents should look like. They shouldn't have tattoos or piercings. They shouldn't talk about sex. They should never smoke pot. Right? And I love that Ruby is a parent and she's a great mom, but she does a lot of those things. And I love that those things didn't take away from her parenting. And also, she even tells her daughter at one point, she's like, I would much rather you drank and tried a drug in the safety of our home with me than at a party with people that I don't trust. And I love that Noreen has that. And I think that this book is going to make so many kids who have those non-conventional parents feel seen. The book talks so much about religion and spirituality and identity. And I loved that. I loved how Noreen is taken to these 14th century ruins and landmark historic sites for her culture by her love interest, Kabir.
We gonna get into him.
We're getting there, don't worry. And the descriptions and celebration of some of these landmark sites were just breathtaking. She'd adored Islamic art and architecture, the domes and the courtyards and the fountains and the precise and loving attention to the minutest details. And though Noreen had marveled at the Alhambra like everyone else, only in Delhi did she feel she understood the intrinsic beauty of Islamic design. Take this place. It had lost all the dressings that Kabir now helped her imagine. The 64 shining white domes, the elegant calligraphy in the prayer hall, the turquoise tiles and the silk carpets, and the play of light and shadow from the lamps that once hung in the arched colonnades, her gilded glass decorated with Quranic verses. That this masjid, stripped to its blackened bones, a shadow of its former self, could still inspire such awe simply from its shapes, ratios, and proportions was a testament to the aesthetic and mystical power of Islamic architecture. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. The author was able to highlight so much of the beauty. It's also pretty cool that the book is somewhat mixed media because Noreen will write these scripts in her head. So you'll have pages where it's just her imaginative script, and those pages were very funny and engaging, and it made Noreen's character feel more realistic. I identify so much with her because she does the thing that I think a lot of us do, even if we don't admit to it, which is create ways that we should have responded to X and Y and Z conversations and relive them in our heads, producing the end result that we would have liked to conjure in real life. That happens so much, and I just really adored that about her. It made her feel so real and human, and I connected with her so much because of that. She is such a flawed, real character. I think she has a big heart and soul. She's funny and entertaining and insecure. And I think that she's going to connect with so many of y'all. My favorite thing about her, not my favorite thing, but one of the elements about her character that I truly appreciated was that she struggles with jealousy. There are a couple scenes where she is having to work through these involuntary feelings of jealousy when she sees a very beautiful girl talking to Kabir. This girl is somebody that Kabir used to have a relationship with, and she has conversations with Kabir, her love interest, about struggling with her jealousy. I like to see people working through their jealousy and acknowledging it and owning it. I think that having a good character, a well-rounded character, means that they are allowed to have flaws, so long as those flaws are trying to be worked through and are addressed and acknowledged as flaws. So I really appreciated that, and I think that that representation is going to speak to a lot of people as well. I very much enjoyed the way that the ex-girlfriend was handled. She is stunningly beautiful and just very charismatic and intelligent. And so often in these books, when you have like that beautiful ex-girlfriend or female rivalry, she is portrayed as a villain. And at no point in the book did I personally feel that this girl was demonized, that there was any femphobia. These girls were not pit in competition against each other for Kabir's love. They were allowed to coexist. And I just thought that was really cool because I was very nervous about that going into this book. I was like, once the the beautiful ex-girlfriend was introduced, I was like, is this gonna end with girl hate and femphobia and girl drama over this boy? Because I just am not, like, is this girl going to end up being a scheming villain who's trying to get him back? And it wasn't that. So I really appreciated that. The one thing that I will say that I didn't love, literally the only thing, is there is a scene where Noreen is hanging out with the ex-girlfriend, Kabir, and then Kabir's friends. And she picks up a bottle of water, and then she finds out after taking a sip that it's actually Molly water. And she doesn't want to, and the friends who let her drink the Molly water acted like it was no big deal. And that just subtly bothered me because that's not an okay thing to do. And so I just hope, especially to like my young folks watching this, that you know that it is never okay for somebody to like accidentally drug you. Like, that is not okay. And it was somewhat addressed. That scene did make me uncomfortable. Noreen ended up like being fine with it. And you know, she ended up having a good time and it was fine. But that was the only thing in this book that gave me pause. I kind of wish those characters had been more intensely chastised, because that is a very serious thing to do, in my opinion. This book is also one of the most casually funny, effortlessly comedic books I have ever read. I think that you're going to really enjoy it. For that fact alone, it makes it such a quick read, especially combined with the script-like writing. But this book is not, do not get me wrong, this book is not all light, joy, and air. This book talks at length about patriarchy and violence against women and death of a parental figure, loss of a family member, poverty and class and caste. All of those issues are consistently explored throughout the book. There's also a queer uncle, which just made me very happy. It made me very, very happy that we had just like a queer side character, and he was super cool. But let's just talk about the romance. Kabir is just, I want to protect him. He is this very feminist, wonderful light of joy. I really liked him. He lets his nieces paint his nails because they wanted to, and so he's just running around with his nails painted. And he's like, whatever, you know, the girls wanted to do it, so why not? I really like that we had representation for just a very chill, sweet, lighthearted, kind of soft boy male love interest. I very much appreciated the romance and the issues, the trials, the tribulations that they had to kind of work through together. Another thing that I really loved about it was that their dating was somewhat arranged. They were set up by a family member once Noreen got to New Delhi, and she was like, oh, I don't want to go. But she ended up saying yes. And then they kind of had this whirlwind romance, which I think a lot of people are going to see as being insta-love. But I would encourage y'all to kind of look carefully at why they formed the bond that they did so quickly and the circumstances that allowed them to be able to connect to each other so easily. I think that it is like I'm one of those people that really doesn't like insta-love. I don't love romance at all in general anyhow. But it is really important to acknowledge that sometimes on BookTube, we forget that insta-love is also cultural. Arranged marriages, arranged relationships, etc. do exist and are a thing and are valid. And given that that's not my culture, I don't want to go into like a lengthy explanation of that. It's simply just not my place. I do want to say that reading this book in the romance, you have to make sure that you're not reading the romance through a Western lens. That is very important. Or rather that you're aware of the fact that you're reading this romance through a Western lens. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Themes in this book: death of a family member, a writer protagonist. So if you are like me and you enjoy having representation for writers, this is definitely the book for you. Unconventional parents, the struggle of being bicultural, casual racism, microaggressions, xenophobia, anti-Muslim ideologies. And then, oh yeah, so a big theme of this book is music. So if you are a music lover, you have to read this book. It consistently celebrates the music of Bollywood, South Asian music, but also talks a lot about Prince and Alanis Morissette. And it's just a really big part of the lives of these women. And on top of all of that, you have these short, sweet, just stunningly beautiful, very pretty passages, such as the one that I read you on page 321. The writing is great. I gave this book obviously 5 out of 5 stars. I got a great deal out of it. I cannot wait to reread it. And I'm not even an Own Voices reviewer. So obviously there's things about this book that I've missed. I can only imagine how much this book would mean to an Own Voices reviewer, which is part of why I wanted to do this review, because I want to make sure this book gets into the hands and on the radar of South Asian reviewers who aren't aware of it, but I also want everybody to read it. Another important thing I want to address before wrapping this video up. On page 320, there is a news article that is included. It's just kind of a summary of all the headlines of today's newspaper. And one of the headlines talked about child rape. It was like a very quick, it was just a mention. It didn't go into detail, but just it was very jarring and surprising to me. I had to take a moment because I was like, whoa, I was not ready to read that. That is on page 320, and feel free to just skip that page or don't read the headlines of that news article if that is a topic that is triggering for you. This book gorgeously balanced the joy with the heavy. I want to end this video by saying I'm not an Own Voices reviewer. This book is under-reviewed, which especially means that there might be something harmful in it that I'm just not aware of. So there are things that I have likely missed, and there might be things about this book that are problematic that I am not aware of. And that's another reason why I'm very excited to read reviews from Own Voices reviewers to see what they think of it and what else I've missed. So if you have made it to the end of this review of this amazing book, please tell me in the comment section down below if you intend on picking up a copy. Please, please, please do. Thank you so much to the publisher for sending me a copy of this book. I did not know that I needed it in my life, and I'm so freaking glad that I have it. Hi, cut off because I'm running out of camera space. What is my outro? Here's my Instagram. All of my social media links will be in the description box below. Stay safe, wear your mask, buy a copy of this book, and I hope to see you in my next video.